Okay, we're going to do our third installment of those attributes of self protection we want to be aware of and how to sort of prioritize them, okay? And we're talking about distance now. People are all of this mindset that when you do things, you don't want to be in a position where you can be hit or cut, but the reality is, if you can anticipate those attacks and you put a person in a situation where you're able to do that, you can be very effective, okay? So it's a bad habit to not understand and be in somebody's range where they can absolutely connect on you, okay, with whatever they're trying to do. But it's a good habit to understand and control that. Because if you're just in range, okay, it means that you can move very little and be out of range, okay, which is a good thing. It gives you control. The final distancing, and probably the one that most people should work with, unless you've been doing this a while, is just out of range, okay, maybe about half a foot or a foot or so. Okay? And what I mean by that is very specific. If I can take my hand and do this, and I'm about 6 inches away from you, it means that for me to hit you, you should see my whole body move. So if you don't see my whole body move, I can't hit, or, if we're dealing with a knife cut, whatever the case may be. Okay? So that should be sort of how you judge that, your way that you measure that distance, okay? This way, using your peripheral vision and your distancing, you know if somebody moves at that point in a very dynamic feedback loop, again, we call our cyber chain, you're aware at all times of where your opponent is in relation to how they can cause you harm, okay? So, all these things should be subsumed under this ethic. And that ethic is you do not want to be defensive or defensive minded. You do not want to think about blocking and evasiveness that is for its own sake, okay? You want to think about redirection. You want to think about if you're attacking a limb, okay? The difference between this and this is everything, but it's only a mindset, okay? If I'm doing this to stop your hand, that means that you're going to punch me with your other hand, okay? If I do this to break, to injure that hand, it means I'm injuring that so I can follow up, okay? My mindset is totally different. You need to think proactively and aggressively, okay? And you need to develop accordingly your techniques, okay? So always think assertively, aggressively, okay, in that situation, okay? Also, along those lines, we're not just talking on this level of, if he looks at you funny, you punch him in the nose. That's not what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is something like a grab. If you want to train like a real professional, don't wait until somebody grabs you. And I don't mean, again, they look at you funny, you punch them in the nose. What I'm talking about is when a hand comes towards you and clenches, there's a whole bunch of movement taking place here, okay? That person is getting set to wrench or to control you. And as that's happening, use that to control him, to take him into a position where he's off balance. You should never have to have somebody actually get a hold of you in that situation, okay? You should use that to put him off balance, okay? So the minute somebody is going to grab you, you should be moving in a way to control that person because they're giving you a nice tactile cue about where they are, okay? If you are grabbing me, I know where you are now. I know where your energy is, which brings us to the next counterpoint to that, okay? Ura omote. Omote is the more obvious. The obvious here is when he grabs you, instead of him controlling you, use it to control him. by taking him off balance with how you move. And again, we'll get into that at a different time. I thought I had a Nuke coming. I have to look again. We'll get that solved. Ura, the more occult, hidden aspect of that. Okay? When somebody is grabbing or trying to control you, do not get entangled with them. Okay? This is a big problem with sports jiu-jitsu and a lot of other stuff that's not really designed for the street. In reality, whenever somebody grabs you, no matter what you're doing to them or you're fighting, you're focused on them. And if you're only focused on them, then you lost your focus elsewhere. This is, again, the book. Very important in bouncing, okay? Because it's a distraction. But from a self-defense primer, self-protection, discourage yourself from getting into these things where he grabs, you grab, and we like that as human beings. We're mammals, you know. He hits, you hit, he grabs, you grab. Bilateral symmetry, you know. This comes up, this comes down, one nice, but those are all very predictable patterns of movement and will get you in trouble and will get you tied up with a person, okay? So for example, he's here, he's grabbing, instead of doing something, boom, 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 okay? Just move to the side. Move past him this way, okay? Don't, as he's touching and you're moving, make him have to grab you to maintain his stability or not to be able to be grabbed. And you can be hitting him at that point, okay? It's a mindset at this point. We'll talk about techniques later, but it's a mindset. Do not get entangled with your opponent, okay? So you basically have some nice principles to work with here. And I dare say, if you bought this book to look at those a little more carefully, you'd have a lot of preparation. So the importance of this is, if you train according to these principles, in general proportion at this point, it'll set up good habits for what follows, okay? When I do come out and I'm showing you guys techniques, okay, it'll make more sense to you, okay? And it doesn't matter, it shouldn't matter the art. It's not important. It's how you use the art that makes you effective. Do you know one of the best martial arts for bouncing? Aikido. Okay? Aikido is a great art for when you have to grab people. Okay? It comes from Aikijutsu, or really, that term doesn't actually exist. It's Daitoryu, but Daitoryu was partially used as a bodyguarding art. So you had to be able to take people and move in tight quarters and control them. Okay? Aikido comes from that. And a lot of those concepts work very well, like Sankyo. Okay? To control a person without them being able to control you or grab you. Okay? I mean, think about it. In Aikido, you're never really getting into a match where somebody's grabbing you. Now, does that mean it's good on the street? No, that's not my point. It can be good if the person who knows how to use it is using it properly, okay? And it has nothing to do with it being Aikido. Look at the technique. Don't look at the art. Don't get into all these little stupid little conversations about this art, that art. Again, I always talk about Saif Karman in Brick City Combatives, but he makes another wonderful point. He was talking about these English street fighters that were bouncers and were very well respected for their abilities that way. And a lot of them studied a base karate like Shotokan. Okay? Doesn't matter. I mean, it's what you do with the art, how you develop it, how you use it, not the art. Okay. With that, we'll call it a series.